Well, hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. Doing this format still. Kevin and myself, we are both performance marketers, senior performance marketers at that, and we're trying to offer our expertise and talk through the day-to-day of challenges we face and kind of our point of views on them, maybe questions, thoughts ourselves where we want to improve. And that's what this format is. So if you have questions, you can DM me about them. You can leave comments on where these episodes live. I will read them. But most importantly, let's get down to the nitty gritty of performance marketing. So today's episode, we really want to talk about creative. I think this is something as a performance marketer, you're going to have your hands all over, your thoughts all over. It's going to be a big part of your daily function. And it'd be great to kind of talk through some of these bigger questions that we always get asked. I think the first question is, what makes a good creative versus bad creative? And now we're not tackling this as necessarily like a creative agency, but like what kind of creative we need for performance. So I'm just going to throw it over to you, Kevin, to kind of get us started. What makes a good creative?
Yeah, so a good creative is helping the user, the audience, actually learn how you can solve their problem, right? So we're hit with millions, billions of impressions a year on all kinds of ads. There's so much out there. And there are all kinds of things that we consume that we don't even remember. We can't recall them at all because they weren't helping us solve the problem. So I think that is the most important thing to think about, even beyond like color or font choices or like video format. It's just what all of those things are important, but whatever you're creating, it needs to be speaking directly to that avatar, that ideal customer, and their everyday needs. You need to make it really obvious to them what you can do for them and how you can make their life easier. So I'm not a design expert, right? Like I'm not actually designing these ads at my agency, but I do like to think about that and work backwards from there. So whether you are a creative or you're working with one and you're briefing them on what you need, I think that's the question you need to ask yourself from the beginning of the process.
Definitely. I think you did a great job with a very broad question there. So just to drill down a little deeper, I think from my perspective and kind of what Kevin's saying too, so some words I'm picking up is like obvious, clarity, aligning with what the, let's use customer needs from the ad. Okay, how I'm going to describe that essentially is a good ad creative gets a customer to do something. And then what our job is from performance is making sure that's aligned with what we need to get them to do. So a lot of the time, again, we're in B2B. We both run demand creation programs. Maybe sometimes this ad creative just needs to get someone to consume the content, engage with it. It could be that simple. It could be even furthermore, we need to get them to act. Let's get them on the webpage to perform something. Again, maybe you could do stuff that I do a lot with like podcast ads where it's like, I'm just trying to get more people on the podcast. So I'm trying to show people like the value of like coming on to talk to my customers. So I think that's a good place to take it. And then let's do the bad creative, because I think I'll explain first and I'll let you kind of talk your thoughts, Kevin. But I think bad creative is where you just copy what other people are doing. This is how I'm going to take it. It's like bad creative is you just see stuff on the internet and you're like, I should just do that. I see this all the time. I'm in these marketing communities. You know, people like screenshot, like, this is great. This is awesome. I think it's great for that company. But if you're going to align with what Kevin and I are saying is a good creative gets the customer act. Okay. You need to think about what's good for you. So that's my blanket statement of like bad creative is where you just kind of copy and paste. What do you think, Kevin?
I think that's a great point. If you think back at some of the best ad creatives ever, you know, the Volkswagen Think Small, even the Dollar Shave Club video that went viral. Budweiser, what's up, like all of that.
Mm.
Like they're great, but who else could that have even worked for? So I think that's a really great point.
Okay, I love where you took that, because I think that's important. Is to get your customers to act, you may have to do something very exciting. And in all those examples, those are great ad campaigns, great ad creative. Now, but if we try the copy and paste method, it's not going to work for us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another piece: is your ad creative should get someone to act, should get your customer to do something, but sometimes you need to do something exciting. Otherwise, there's no way you're gonna get through the noise, as you already said, Kevin. There's just so many impressions, so many things you're seeing all the time. Let's put that on it too. Do something exciting as well. Next subject is, once we have a good creative, I think for most performance marketers, we may deal with, like, how do we strategically test this creative, or how do we actionize this creative over time and iterate? I'll kind of throw that over to you, Kevin. Really, again, just the question is like best practices for testing creative.
Right. So A/B testing is, if not the biggest, it's one of the biggest benefits of performance marketing on digital channels, right? Getting back pretty quick real-time platform data. So I think of it as like, you can build a framework for how an A/B test would work. You want to test this image against this image, or this headline against this headline. So you can build that actual like mechanical framework, but I think going into that, you need to have some sort of hypothesis or plan of, I'm testing like this messaging tactic versus this one, because you can test two images or two body copies against each other, but they could be so dissimilar or have completely different messages or goals that the data you get back isn't totally accurate. So you can have a framework, you need to have a clear hypothesis, and that needs to also align with who you're targeting, right? Like if you're targeting specifically like building superintendents or something like that, like you need to be like asking yourself, is this messaging going to resonate with them versus this one? And not just throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and call it A/B testing and then come back with results like, well, this worked better than that, when that may not be based in any sort of real test.
Yeah, I think what's important with creative testing and testing in general, and Kevin and I have talked about this in themes here, but you need to come up with your own process and system, and then utilize that to help you understand and document and learn. I think a common best practice for testing creative for me is to not get caught up in the micro creative tests. And again, Kevin already talked about this, but it's like headline versus headline, image versus image. I don't think that's the best use of our time as performance marketers in B2B. I think it's more of helping, again, getting that message out there, these big macro experiments, and understanding, does my strategic narrative work better than my ads that may speak to pain, agitation? Does this category of content work better than this category of content? I think that will better serve you from creative testing. Some actual ways I execute this is, again, coming up with my own categories and themes, and just like slapping them on kind of my experiment. So common ones I've already read is like narrative ads, service ads, pain, agitation ads. You can come up with your own definitions, but I think that's important. So then you can start to see that change over time. And likewise, I think what's big too with creative is capturing the nuances as well. And I think a common question we're probably getting creative testing is like, how does this video ad perform better than this like single image ad? Those are really hard to answer as performance marketers. But again, it's more of how do I distribute this message as a whole across single image, cross video? It's a message about the narrative. How's that doing as holistically across all that, right? And you may look at certain metrics, engagement rate, click-through rate. You choose them, figure out your own process and system. But that's going to start to help you kind of really observe and analyze those big macro experiments. Just any comments or thoughts with what I'm saying, Kevin?
I think that's a great point, that if you're going to be you can run tests of different ad formats, right? Like single image versus video. That's not a clear cut like A/B test as you might know it in performance marketing, but I still think you can run experiments that way. Um, but I think the point that you brought up is you need to choose the metrics that you're going to look at, because video formats or ad formats themselves can drastically impact CPM and cost. And so that can skew results. So you need to think about like, what am I actually going to be measuring? And we've talked at length about measurement, but what am I going to be measuring, and like, how am I going to actually come to a conclusion? But I think you can use a very similar messaging tactic in a text or a plain image ad and text ad with versus a video. Um, I think what you could get back could end up being really fascinating.
Mhm. And just to take this a little further, is a common question we may get asked is video ads better than single image ads, or is this format better than this other format? I think a more productive way to think about it, what I wrote down is channel message fit instead of market message fit. Is channel message fit means, do I understand how my audience is viewing content on this channel? And then if I can understand that, then I should understand like what actual format is best for my creative, best for my experiment, best for distributing my message. Again, if you're going to put something on TikTok, it needs to be a video creative, right? I don't quite understand how you cannot think that. So that's the point I want to illustrate. I'm just going to let you have a rebuttal or any thoughts of that channel message fit. What do you think?
Not only that, you need to understand how, not only do I need a video, but how is that video consumed on that platform, right? So TikTok plays the video with sound immedately, but you would want to make a video creative that feels like a native organic post on TikTok. You want to within the first 3 seconds grab the attention. You probably want to have a human face in there, right? Like, it needs to feel native to the platform. If you're running something on like LinkedIn or Facebook, it auto plays, but audio is not turned on when you first open the app. So are you going to put in captions? Are you going to use that same idea of a 3-second hook in the intro? Or are you looking to just put a long form piece on there, run it as an ad, and see what happens, right? You need to understand the nuances of how a specific ad unit is consumed, and work around backwards from there. You can do it. Like, you could make one video that can work on whatever channel you're serving it on, but you might need to do a little editing, a little finessing to make it fit.
So I think one other aspect I do want us to talk about, I didn't write this down, so these are surprises. Essentially, a piece of creative is the content, the copy. And what reminded me is when Kevin said hook. I think there is formulas that work for good creative. I think the common one you're going to see is hook, offer, call to action. I think that formulaic content does work. I think it will help you get started. But what I really want to offer is if you do that process of creative testing, you should figure out the own formulas that work for you and your business and your clients. And maybe that's not it. Again, if you're doing pure demand gen, I'm not trying to get anyone to a call to action. I'm just trying to get them to consume the content, make the content better, make it more engaging over time. So I did want to mention that because I do think from a content standpoint, there is kind of best practices and you should follow them, but you should deviate, right? So just any comments on like creative copy or kind of that idea, Kevin?
Yeah, I think you can even mess around with the length. Like, you can use the same type of messaging, but have it be shorter versus longer. Think about too, where does the text cut off on a Facebook ad or a LinkedIn ad? Meaning, does the person have to click see more to read more? And if it's longer form copy and somebody's having to read see more, you can see those metrics, at least in LinkedIn. It's just other is the metric, but it counts people that click on see more. So A lot of things to consider, but yeah, I mean, the hook is always important, right?
Mhm.
Like you're never really going to get away from that, but um, you can, like you said, you can test maybe a format that's like hook, offer, CDA versus hook, education,
Mhm.
right? Versus offer. That might be something more for like a top of funnel demand gen. Um, Man, there's just so much to consider. Like what phase of the buying process is your audience in? What format? What channel? There's a lot that goes into it. So I think it's just to be a good creative and a performance marketer, you just need to spend a lot of time on these platforms
Mhm.
and know what's going on. And if you can, even be mindful of how you're consuming the information.
I think that's a fantastic point and gets me to another bullet that's not on here. So more surprises. Um, you should spend time on the platforms. You should consume the content, and then you should try new things. So something that I know you're doing at Grilla is like using memes and ads. I know we do that organically at Proofpoint, but it's again that's the content on the channel message fit. Maybe we should attempt to do this. Do you just have any thoughts or feedbacks? As I know you've been doing that recently. How's that been working for you using memes and ads?
Yeah, I mean, you need to think about context of the platform, nuances of the platform, but just what is happening in culture as well. Like we work in B2B, we run B2B ads, but why does that it doesn't have to make the ad doesn't have to be one way or another, right? It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be quote unquote boring, right? Like we're it's at the end of the day, it's human to human. You're selling human to human. And if you work in B2B, that doesn't mean you don't understand what memes are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or you don't understand what like trends on TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever are. So like if you can do it tastefully, don't do it just to do it and be like, "Hello, fellow kids," or don't do it just to seem hip, but like if it fits your brand voice and it feels natural to you and it actually aligns with the your messaging itself, why not take a swing at it?
Definitely. I think that's the theme of this is as performance marketers, we're not afraid to test stuff, but we sure as heck need to document stuff and learn from it. Another just kind of tip, and this is more content marketing strategy, is repurpose when you can. Like there's already content out there that works, and our job as performance marketers, like let's go distribute that creative. I already know maybe works organic or works on the website. Let me repurpose it and make sure I get in front of the right people. Is that something at Grilla that you've been doing a lot?
Repurposing, yeah, I mean, I think, with there's all kinds of opportunities to repurpose content organically or with paid. Um, and you can, if you have a blog post that has worked well, you can always repurpose that into an ad. Again, you got to be mindful of all the other factors. But I think it's really cool too how just with every platform is has some level of like organic reach now.
Mm.
It's not for a while it was like you couldn't get organic reach on Facebook or Instagram, but you could on LinkedIn and TikTok. But now it's like you can get organic reach on just about anything. So I think about that too. Like if you're posting organic content, like run it as an organic piece. If it performs well, that might mean hey, there's potential there for an ad. Um, yeah, just a lot of opportunity right now.
There's so much opportunity, and why this is a little bit of switch because I wanted to talk about repurposing because it makes you move faster as a performance marketer. I think that's important with creative testing and experimentation too. Is we need to get out there, we need to move fast, we need to learn fast. Well, now there's advancements in our world that are going to make us move much faster, and that's where this is going to be more of an open part of the segment here. Is AI technology and how is that going to impact the creative experiment and experience as performance marketers. So I'll talk a little bit about some, and I'll throw it over to Kevin. But I think the biggest one is going to be just purely the creative generation and the copy generation. So I think as performance marketers, where we do have an understanding again of how content's consumed on the platform, we have an understanding of like what kind of performs better than not. With these AI tools, I think performance marketers will just have the ability to go create it themselves. And that's nothing to say against designers, because designers are really, really good and copywriters are really, really good. But I think we can best help our team if we move quickly and help us understand what we learn quickly. So I think that's probably the most exciting thing for me with AI and kind of testing it out. Is there anything specifically you want to talk about AI, Kevin?
A lot.
Yeah, throw it at me.
Yeah. So I think AI at this moment, spring 2023, it's still, even though it's the talk of the town, it's still massively underrated. Right now, as it stands, I mean, it's only going to get better. Right now, as it stands, there's lots of holes in what it can offer. A lot of the generated art is corny. It's not very good. ChatGPT, unless you really know how to use it, is probably going to kick you back some pretty corny copy as well. So, but it's only going to get better. It's only going to be integrated with the platforms that we use more and more. Google is doing that already. Facebook has been using some type of AI machine learning. This week, even ChatGPT just launched like, what do you call it? Like integrations, like you can build on top of them. Like plugins, basically, you can build on top of ChatGPT. So over the next 5-10 years, it's going to grow so much. And I think even on ad performance optimizations, the platforms themselves are going to use AI to where, I think your point where you said performance marketers are going to be building creatives themselves. I think that is definitely true. And I think it also goes the other way, where a lot of the things, the optimizations of ads, like us deciding to turn off an ad or to flip this switch, that's going to be automated. That's going to be AI, to where you almost have creative as the variable. That's the key it already is now, but it'll be even more so moving forward, to where you're almost going to have this hybrid skill set required to do what we do. You're not just a performance marketer. You're not just a creative. You're a little bit of both. You can generate creative. You've got a good eye, a good taste, a good hypothesis of how a creative is going to perform beforehand. And then you almost just sort of put it into the machine, and you might steer that machine in a couple different directions. You might turn it one way, turn it this way, but you kind of just put it in and let it cook. And a lot of these things that we worry about now, we won't be worrying about as much in 5 years.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So yeah, forget this episode. Yeah, I think what is important from the world that Kevin is illustrating is this job changes. And that's why I wanted to kind of do these type of episodes and talk about it and make sure that we're all on the same path of progressing forward and learning. I think it's very exciting for AI. I think giving my hands off optimization sometimes, those many optimizations, I almost like that world, right? I think creative is the variable. Even I'll use kind of the quote by Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. When people ask him, like, is there going to be less developers? He's always like, no, there's just going to be 10x more code. I think with this example, it's like, there's just going to be 10x more creative. There's just going to be 10x more type of content, right? And I think it's going to need us, those people that understand how it performs, how like content's consumed, to be that kind of lens to help other people understand, like, okay, this is good creative still. Like, we still have to answer that question. So I think that's very exciting forefront. Just to wrap us up here, you went to Ad World. Just any thoughts, tips, surprises, excitement? Like, how was it?
Yeah. So what I just talked about, AI, that was the big thing. Everybody touched on that. And everything I just said was stuff that some of it was stuff that I learned in the last couple of days, to be honest. I think another thing that got me thinking was just the state of the economy and talks of recession. A lot of people's gut reaction when there's any sort of economic downturn is to pull back on ad spend. And I understand that. And you don't want to go out of business because you're spending more ad dollars than just like payroll. But I think we do need to be mindful of this happened during COVID. A bunch of people pulled money off of the table out of Facebook, and ads got really cheap really quickly. And there were some companies that just pressed really hard in March and April 2020 that are now twice as big as they were before. And I think it's an opportunity. You might see your lead volume come down. You might see directly attributed sales come down. But man, it's an opportunity to grow your brand because ads are probably going to be cheaper and there's going to be less noise filling the pipes. And even in 2008, when things got really bad, like there was a lot of companies that pulled back ad spend and their overall market share and their consumer sentiment took a hit. So I say, I just don't make the same mistakes that others have and keep your business afloat, but don't lose out on an opportunity, even if the economy softens a bit.
Love it. I think those are things that absolutely impact performance marketers. Although we may not always have our hands on it. I do think that the phrase, don't make the same mistakes. That's kind of why we're doing these episodes. So you can kind of learn from our mistakes and hopefully not make them. So we'll wrap up there. Appreciate your time, Kevin. I love talking about everything performance marketing with you. We'll keep going. Another topic, we'll think of it and we'll record it. If you have any questions or feedback, or you want me to talk about something specifically, DM me. People actually do that. I've been saying that in other episodes. It's like people actually do raise their hand and talk to me. So happy to hear that and then record an episode. But I'll bid you farewell and keep on performing.